Yes, we're live. For the past 12 weeks, we have been talking about gender based violence. For the past 12 weeks, we have been talking about the hashtag I Day With Her. The whole essence of being with her is to ensure that we protect our girls and women from gender based violence. Unfortunately for us, this campaign has seen a lot of people come to talk about how they have been violated, but how they are not victims, but victors. We've heard horrible stories. We've x-rayed the causes of the problems. It's gone to the area of culture, religion, and patriarchy sits square in it. But also the whole idea of shaming people who are actually survivors and not victims has also made it difficult. I have two people on the show with me today. This is our 13th. We promised you a 13-part series. Now we've done all of this. I'd like to say thank you to every single person that has been on the show. But I want to introduce the people who are going to motivate you to take the next step beyond staying with her. What do you need to do? So I'm going to start by introducing my guest, Reverend Father George Ehusani. Now, Reverend Father George Ehusani, I found by accident on WhatsApp when I saw something they had done training the trainers to help them respond to cases of gender-based violence. So Reverend Father George is the executive director for Lux Terre Leadership Foundation. So I'd like to welcome you to the show. He's calling in today from Abuja. Thank you, Reverend Father George, for accepting to speak at a very short notice.
Thank you, Adeswa. Thank you very much. It's Lux Terra,
It's
not
good to
Lux
see.
Terra. Yeah.
Oh, Lux Terra.
Terra.
Thank you very much for the correction. Lux Terra.
Yeah.
Lux Terra. Can we kindly change the Terra to Terra? Lux Terra. Thank you very much, Father George, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Always a teacher any day. I appreciate you. It's been a long time, but I'm glad that you accepted to do this for me.
Thank you, and I congratulate you for the series that you have just introduced. I didn't know it was on, but that's fantastic effort to have
Mhm.
this 13 episode series on this topic.
Thank you very much, Father. And calling from Lagos, calling in on the show from Lagos is Ezinne. And Ezinne is just here simply because she's a motivational speaker. She's a creative writer. And recently she became an author. Now she sends me this book that says Up You. And I'm like, Up You? But then as I was beginning this series, I realized that everybody who's been part of this series, the least I could do for them is to say up you, because for sharing your story, up you, for supporting and being with her, up you, and for accepting to be on the show today, Ezinne Kufre Ekanem, up you. And I think, is it odd that you're talking about this even though we're talking about gender-based violence?
Hi, Adeswa. Thank you so much for having me on the program. I'm already enjoying myself. And yes, up you to you. And then up you to everyone who has been on this program for the last 13 episodes. It's incredible. You guys are all
Mhm.
victors. You guys are all victors. You guys are all survivors. And yes, my up you to you.
So I'll just go straight into the conversation, but I want both of you to give me your perspective around gender-based violence. Since Ezinne is upfront right now, tell me about it. What's your perspective about gender-based violence? Especially because up until today, it still remains that girls and women are the ones that suffer some form of violence, more violence than anybody else. So I'll go with you, Ezinne, first, and right after you, Reverend Father George Ehusani.
Actually, that's true. It is a very well-known fact all over the world that girls and women suffer the most when it comes to gender-based violence. And for a long time, the society has just been victimizing the victims. When you speak up, you become the butt of the society and the butt of their jokes and all the cruel remarks and talks. And so it led to a lot of people not being able to speak up about what they've gone through. And when you don't speak up about something, you actually kind of now embolden the perpetrators. And so people have just been going away and getting along with beating up people, violating women and all of that. So I'm really very happy that we've
Mhm.
come to the point where women and girls in particular are beginning to stand up to say, oh no, this happened to me. Because really and truly,
Mhm.
violence, gender-based violence shouldn't define who you are. It's something that has happened to you, but it's not you. So nobody should judge you nor frame you in that box. So I'm so grateful that people are speaking up now, standing up first to say, own up and say, oh, this happened to me. And then speaking out and saying, oh, okay, all right, I'm no longer going to stand for this again. And the more we gather volume to the voices, to the revelations that we're seeing and everything, then I think we'll begin to see less and less of it because people will now become very scared and not know, oh, will somebody mention my name one day or something like that. So it's a good development. It's a very good development. So it's no longer something shrouded in secrecy or something we don't want people to talk about.
Thank you very much, Ezinne. I'll go to Reverend Father George Ehusani. And in the course of our 13 editions that we had, one of the areas, one of the institutions that was highly blamed was the religious institution. Besides the fact that because of the comfort that a lot of people feel with their religious leaders, they also stand the risk of being abused by them. But beyond all of that, what bothers people is these are the people that can actually influence society to cause change. So it gives me pleasure to see that you, through Luke's Terre Foundation, is trying to change the perspective.
Yeah. Or is she frozen? It appears
So go ahead,
that
Father.
yeah, it appears. Okay, thank you very much. I think that the issue of violence against women and girls is a very serious one. There's a long history of that violence. And like Ezinne said, it is something of joy to notice that many people are beginning to speak out. And when you speak out, you expose the wound. And you can only heal wounds when you open them up. Because if we keep this guilty silence, if we maintain the guilty silence, then we are going nowhere. Therefore, it is absolutely important that the new development of people speaking out is the way to go if we are ever going to make progress with reducing drastically, with preventing violence against women and girls. Let me say that all human beings should be concerned about this because, as they say, violence done against one human being is violence done against humanity in general. Yes. When you diminish a human being, you diminish all of humanity. So it may be to the house girl, it may be to the wife, anybody that is vulnerable, that violence is done to or against, you actually diminish the whole of humanity. And some of the things that happen in our society in this area of violence against women and girls, some of them amount to crimes against humanity. I mean, when you see what some people do to their house girls, including what some women do to their fellow vulnerable young women. I mean, the little girls of 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 that people go to take from the village and bring to the city, call nannies, what people do to those little girls who simply, they are in those positions because their parents are poor. Now, for me, some of them amount to crimes against humanity. We read in the newspapers, on social media, we hear people burning the hands, burning, I mean, cutting, until blood is coming out simply because somebody maybe stole some little miserable thing in the house or goes to market and does not do what the madam said, and so on and so forth. What some men do to their wives, it is about abuse of power in general. It is about widespread abuse of power, and the only way that we can reduce that is to have checks and balances. Is to have, first of all, people speaking out, people being trained to monitor these abuses, and appropriate sanctions.
Before I take a break, I'm going to take a break in a few minutes to show some of the work that you people have done, especially the Luster, and talk a little bit about your book. But I want Ezinne to step in here. And the reason I'm saying this is oftentimes when we talk about violence, the first thing that comes to mind is sexual violence. And something that Father George just spoke to means that this, because we are crowding and always thinking only about rape and things like that. What about the injustices and the criminality of what we do to people that we say are our helps? I wanted to speak to that a little, Ezinne.
In fact, when he was talking, I was even saying there's non-verbal violence. Because sometimes when you even ignore someone, you send the person's brain in places it shouldn't be going to. There's a whole lot of intolerance right now in the world, and I think maybe because of the hardship, I don't know. I just feel like humanity has lost a bit of our humanness. You know, I think sometimes I think that technology has failed us. We have just become less human because of the way we deal with human beings. Somebody just does something that is so little, you just lash out. Somewhere they said that people who are hurting hurt other people. So I think majority of the world, we are actually all hurting right now. But that is not an excuse for you to be violent in any way, manner, shape, or form to anyone, especially to little ones. The little girls, the young girls that come to help you as house helps, as nannies and stuff. You stab them, you beat them, you use the rope to beat them, and then I mean we see all sorts of things that are supposed to be believed on social media. And then we hear all sorts of things coming out from NGOs. It's just so crazy. And you just be asking yourself, does this person have any human milk at all? Because you see, the truth is, whatever it is that might have been broken, lost, stolen, or displaced can be replaced. But the human life, once you just scar that life and mar that life, it is a whole lot of work to get that life back into shape and on track. You know, some of these people, when they grow up into adults, if they don't find help, they actually become they do what they do the same things that happen to them to another group of people because that's the only thing that they know. So we've just got to stop somewhere, and that is right now, right here. We've just got to stop and start becoming kind, start being human like we were, and treating one another like we want to be treated, like we should even treat ourselves. That's what I think.
So as I mean, I'm going to go back to Father now. Father, I mean, you're a religious, I mean, a leader of sorts because you have a congregation that you speak to. What do you think has happened to this milk of human kindness that we seem to have lost? Because listening to Ezinne, I think she's hit the nail on the point. It's like we don't feel human, whether it is sexual violence or physical violence against a girl or a woman or anybody for that matter. It's because we haven't shown a sense of human kindness and our humanity is being lost. What do you think about that, Father George?
Well, Ezinne touched on the perhaps part of the cause. We have a major problem in our day. We do run, one of the things we do at Terre is that we run psychotrauma healing programs, and we train hundreds of people with skills for psychotrauma healing. And one of the things that comes out through our psychotrauma healing program is that perhaps 70 to 80% of people in our society are hurting. People are traumatized. Our motto in our psychotrauma healing, she said it in another form, our motto is healed people, heal people. Healed people, heal people. Meaning that wounded people often go around wounding others. And it is true that the majority of people in our society are wounded. Just see how people drive on our streets. On the streets of Lagos, Port Harcourt, or Abuja, see how people drive like mad people, right? We say it glibly that they are driving like mad people, but actually many are mad.
And roaming.
I don't know if you remember the year, some 15 years ago, when people who are driving one way in Lagos were arrested and taken to Yaba Psychiatric Hospital. 60% of those arrested were ascertained to be people who should be in an asylum. They were not well. Now, if 60% of people who are randomly arrested and tested were ascertained to be people who should be in asylum because of the manner in which they are driving, they say also that the way you do one thing is the way you do all things.
Yeah.
So the manner in which they are driving is the manner in which they will run their homes, is the manner in which they will run their offices, is the manner in which they will conduct their friendships. So we are talking of a lot of people are traumatized from childhood. Then, apart from childhood issues, because a lot of parents are not don't know how to do the parenting. Most parents are just doing trial and error.
True.
Yeah, most people are just doing trial and error. People don't go to school. The most important job in the world is raising children. But that is the job that every Dick and Harry is doing, and nobody really seriously prepares for child raising. So many people make terrible mistakes that the children take along through life and visit the trauma on others. I mean, those who are interested should Google Gabor Mate, Mate, MTE, French name, a Canadian psychiatrist who has written a lot about childhood trauma and how it affects people through life. And people who suffer trauma within the first 3-4 years of their life, if they are not attended to, if there is no serious program of healing, they are likely to visit violence. They are likely to become, they are among those who will become drug addicts, who will become violent criminals in the society, and so on and so forth, because they suffered at a very tender age, and some of that trauma is written into their bodies. And they say that trauma does not just go away. If you have physical wound, it can just go away after some time. But trauma doesn't just go away. It is locked in the body, and it is eventually visited on others.
Muscle
So
memory.
the summary of what I'm saying is that a lot of our people, on account of childhood trauma, because of mistakes of parents, on account of neglect, and they actually say that neglecting children can be more traumatic than even physical abuse. So, because of neglect, yes, when you neglect a child, the child does not know if you abandon, if you leave the child and you go to work, the child cries and cries because the child thinks you have abandoned her. The child doesn't remember that you will come back. The child thinks I have been thrown away. And all those traumas continue to accumulate in the child, and the consequences are terrible. Now, add to childhood trauma, add to what people suffer in school, in secondary schools, add to bullying in schools. So after suffering at home, then they now go to secondary school. The more timid children, even to go back to the school after the first term in secondary school one, many of them are able to tell their parents that I am afraid, I don't want to go back. But they are too afraid to tell the parents why. And that is because of bullying in secondary schools. Now they go through all that, then you now have what people suffer in our universities. I was just told of somebody admitted to one of our premier universities, and when she's from an elite home, when she got there, she discovered that there are no toilets, there are no usable toilets, and that people have to wake up like 5 a.m. to go to the bush in a university. You know, if they to go to the bush to use the bush as toilet before they get ready for school, because the toilets are in such shape that they cannot use it. Now, that is traumatizing. And several other traumatic experiences, then you finish and then there is no work. And then you go up and down, and then somebody wants to give you work, he wants to sleep with you first. Or he wants now, all these are accumulated incidents that the person needs counseling. If he doesn't get it, don't be surprised if she begins to visit violence on anyone that she believes she is stronger than, she is more powerful than.
Very clearly, this just indicates to me, I mean, we had a psychologist, a psychotherapist come on the set to say, in Nigeria today, there are only about 200 clinical psychologists trained that can treat trauma. And I found that I would like at this point in time, that's why I find what Reverend the Luce Terre Foundation training the trainers, I find that very exciting. So if I take a short break, I want to see some clips of that work. And when we come back into the studio, I will discuss with Ezinne, a fellow parent, about some of the issues that Reverend Father George Ehusani has raised today on this show. Okay, I don't know if technical is having a challenge playing the video, but just let me know if we have a minute or so to do that. Okay, you played it already. I'm sorry, I didn't get that. So we saw Father George's news Terra, the trainers. And Ezinne, can you hear me? Let me be sure you can hear me. I'm calling in from Benin City. Oh, great, 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 great. So, I mean, that's the thing about technology. I do thank God that we can call from anywhere and people can watch from anywhere. What even makes me even happier is that whatever it is we do today, we record and we're going to put it on podcast anyway. So I'm not really bothered. I just want to make sure that we deal with the topic at hand. So, Ezinne, what did you feel like when Father George was talking about the fact that 70 to 80% of Nigerians are walking around, you know, traumatized, and most of this trauma is from poor parenting? That puts us in a box, really. Should we still be telling ourselves up you with this? I don't know. Ezinne, please come in.
Well, Father is right. A couple of months ago, I was at an event and we were talking about effective parenting. You see, a lot of us just have children and then we provide shelter and then we provide food and we put them in school and we think we are parenting. Parenting involves you being there. Parenting is a hands-on
There.
thing. You need to be there, you know. But we're chasing clout, we're chasing money, we're chasing this and that. We become too busy, even for ourselves, let alone the children that we brought into the world. And so we're not there. The kids go through stuff, and then we don't get back on time to hear them. When we even come back very tired, and then they're talking to us. We are doing our emails or trying to catch up on something, or we have one function or the other, somewhere we have to show up to be seen, to keep climbing the societal ladder. And these children are practically training themselves. So they internalize all the things they've gone through, all the hurts and everything is all in there. And there's nobody for them to talk to. And the person they even want to go and talk to is another child like themselves or another adult that is just waiting there to take advantage of them. And that's even for parents that are elitist, parents that know. We farmed out parenting to nannies, housekeepers, that the ones who do everything. They pack the lunch for the children, they take the children to school, they do everything. We're just, on our achievement lane and going. You see, even in the book Up You, I say to parents, first things have to be first. You don't go up you when you have not done first things, because the first thing that you're going to account for is your home, are the children that you brought into the society. If you don't have the means, please don't get 9 children. Why do you want to have 9 children just to farm them out to people you don't even know? I mean, I was watching a clip the other day on Instagram. Some woman gave out her child, and the grandparent of the child was using the child to make money, giving the child out to different men, and getting 1,500 naira for God's sake. But if the mother was there to look after the child, oh well, that's not to say that there are no mothers that are violating their kids and meting out violence on their children as well. But the fact is, we need to go back to what it used to be. My mother was a teacher. She could have been more, but she was a teacher because she had to go to school and come back at a certain time to be at home to train her children. I left corporate Nigeria to be able to raise my daughter well, because I was in that corporate Nigeria and I went on a business trip to Ibadan, and by the time I came back, it was way past school over and my child was left in school till 9 p.m. I looked at it and I said, that's not what it's supposed to be. And I quit my job. I quit because first things have to be first. For you to bring a child into this world, then you must make the decision that you're going to be a good parent. Parenting is beyond throwing things at children. You've been given the ability to mold a child, to shape a life, shape a destiny. into what it's supposed to become. So yes, and that's why on this one, I think we parents, we don't have an up you yet, because the people that are violating people are our children. The people that are being violated are also our children. And training starts from home. So we parents need to just go back and say to ourselves, you see, you know, one thing I love about this pandemic is taught us that we don't need as much as we thought we did. Because in 16 months of this pandemic, I haven't dressed up, I haven't gone to no parties, I haven't, you know, so all those things that we're doing before that was taking us away from home, it's time for us to actually do everything. God wants to reset his world. I think that's why he allowed the pandemic. So we can think and say to ourselves, just imagine, we got the opportunity of the pandemic, and what did the world do? We all went on Zoom and we filled all our time. You know, we're doing Zoom meetings and we're complaining again. No, working from home is even more difficult than working from. You see, what's wrong with us? We should take a back set, sit down and say to ourselves, we will become intentional about doing the things we're supposed to do, first things first. And when we order our lives first things first, believe you me, time doesn't go anywhere. Whatever you're supposed to be, you will be. Whatever you're supposed to achieve, you'll achieve. If you train those children and pour into them and give them everything they need, they'll become who they're supposed to become, max in 21 years or 25 years. They're full, grounded, contributory, positive children in the society, and you've got the rest of your life to do all that you want to do. I think we need to have more parents conference.
Thank you.
And do a soul searching and everything.
Thank you, Ezinne. But I do appreciate the angle you have taken. Clearly, parents have lost it. But you know, the problem is there. How do we solve the problem? Which is why the trainers seems to be a good way to go, where people at least realize that there's a problem and we can solve it if we have the skills to do so. But before you speak on that, Father George, and I'm going to bring you back on now, what exactly are we saying? Parents are going to look for money. Parents are going to try to survive. So at the end of the day, is it just the parents or the society at large? Or is it leadership? Or what is it that has put us in the situation where parents, in the cause of trying to make ends meet, have abandoned their primary role? And what we are seeing is we are seeing disturbed adults who are now raising evil, who are hurting others, and possibly raising more disturbed youngsters. So, is there a solution?
It is a difficult challenge, but it is not without a solution. I mean, there are solutions. I'll just give you a short anecdote. In Lagos, several years ago, over 20 years ago, there was a banker who had a little child of about 2.5, 3 years, and a daughter. And then he goes to work at that time when the banks were under serious distress. He used to go to work every day, including Saturday. I think he was handling a critical section of the bank. And then he was spending only Sundays at home with his family and going to church. Now, when this child came of age, like 2.5, 3 years to be able to notice things, one day, the banker on Sunday had to go to bank for some urgent work. So he was not with the family that day. Understand that where he lived in Lagos, he got home after the child has slept around 10 p.m. and he left home around 5 a.m. before the child woke up. Now, so the child only saw him on Sundays. One fateful Sunday, he had to go to the bank for some work. So the child, who was now beginning to be able to ask questions, looked at the mom and said, "Mommy, that man who used to visit us on Sunday, he is not here today." "Mommy, that man who used to visit us on Sunday, he is not here today." When the mom heard this,
in their father.
Yes, but he didn't know. It's a man who used to visit us on Sunday. So when the wife told him when he returned from work that, "Do you know that your daughter doesn't know you?" He said, "That man who used to visit us on Sunday, why didn't he come today?" The young man, I'm told, went to the bank the next day and resigned.
Yes.
Now, it made all the sense to me. I lived briefly in Germany. When German young couple want to have children, many of them don't even want to have children. But when they want to have children, what happens is that they have a mutual agreement that the wife will be full-time if it is for 3 or 4 years. Then the husband also can arrange a 6-month leave of absence once the child is born to support the wife. So they don't mind losing that money because they recognize the responsibility of raising children. So what you are saying about balancing, looking for money, anyone, in fact, anyone who wants to raise children, it is a matter of justice, and I mean it, justice to that child, that you cannot be a career person and continue your upward rise in career at the same time as you want to raise children. There is a responsibility for society in this, to recognize people who are raising children for society and not punish them for taking time out, to find a way of organizing the structures of working places. However, when you say the society, the church, the family, the primary people who are responsible for raising children
are the parents.
Yes, they before children start going to church to be taught catechism, to be taught Sunday school, they are 4, 5, 6. Now, developmental psychologists agree that by the time a child is 4.5 years, the child has developed all the developmental idiosyncrasies and temperaments.
Spot on.
So by the time the child comes to church, it is too late, because the child is formed, as it were. The reason is that the human brain develops 80% by the time the child is 4.5. Therefore, all the idiosyncrasies and temperaments are fully formed at that time. We can only do panel beating in church when the child comes at the age 5 or 6. So the parents have the primary responsibility and the prerogative, and they must balance the interest in raising children and interest in career. They must balance it up. The child needs attention, absolute attention, 24-hour attention the child needs. And if the child is denied that attention, the consequence is the kind of thing we are seeing. Added to this is a failed state. Our country has failed, as it were. So added to the trauma that the child gets from childhood is a failed state where the child can look up to nothing from the state. A lot of our young people who are on drugs today, part of the reason is that they are in the school. There is no hope of employment. There is no hope that tomorrow will be better than today. And as they take drugs, then you can no longer call their behavior fully human. Ezinne talked about the loss of our humanity. How will humanity not be lost when people's behaviors are changed with substances that do all kinds of damage to the brain? Let me end this by saying that what Terre is doing is, maybe you don't know this one, that we do psychotrauma healing to try to ameliorate this situation. People who have gone through all kinds of trauma, to do some train people, also training of trainers to help them. We know that it takes a long time to train a clinical psychologist. And so we are training normal people who are counselors, school counselors, people who are emergency service people, social workers, imams and pastors who normally do counseling anyway. We equip them with skills so as to do trauma counseling so that they can help many more people. And in the last few years, we have trained about 300 such people who are counseling people in the various places that they are. Now, this one about preventing violence against women and girls is to equip community and religious leaders to help go back to their places and help educate their people about the evil of what is going on, how to recognize that something is happening even when the people are not yet able to speak out, how to recognize from their comportment to know that perhaps this person is suffering something, and do something about getting the information out, and then all the intervention mechanisms. And then we have used, their religious background, the law, the civil law of the country, and the best of our traditional practices. We had some not so good practices, but we have also some laudable practices. I mean, look at in many of our African traditions, for example, look at how women who have just delivered babies are treated. That was, I mean, really, really celebrated and pampered in many of our cultures. We need to revive all those. We need to revive the wonderful elements of our cultures and condemn the ones that we have come to recognize are violating human dignity and human rights. So we train them on all this and send them back.
So, on this training, thank you, Father. I mean, thank you both of you for holding 40 while I was there. I guess this training is open to everybody, not necessarily based off of, I mean, just for Christians or something like that.
Well, for now, actually, this particular training is targeted to trainers in Sokoto State and Adamawa State. So the one that is ongoing now has 20 participants from Sokoto State, 20 participants from Adamawa State. The first set of the training was done for Muslims because there is a heavy dose of the use of religious texts. So our partners, the Development Initiative of West Africa, handled the Muslim one, and we are handling the Christian one. As for our trauma healing, we do it jointly for both Christians and Muslims.
Okay. So it's good to know that that's happening. But I think I can take a break now. I just want to see the book, Up You. I want to come back and talk about why we must pat ourselves at the back for some of the good things that we have, just like Father had said, some of the good cultural practices that we have. But more importantly, I want Ezinne, after showing that book, to tell us the different steps in Up You that Up You addresses that can in some ways help us to deal with these issues. So if technical is ready, I need to see Up You very quickly. Okay, that was a very brief for 30 seconds. Well, you know, when you wrote this book, I read that book in less than, I don't know, maybe 3 hours or so, but it just kept having me go from one spot to the other. So I want you to speak to the different progressions. The story is bad. We are not such great parents. Yes. Our society is terrible. Yes. But we can be better. And I also like what Father George mentioned, what's happening in a place like Germany, for example, where parents are being more deliberate. So kindly, can you speak to that, please, Ezinne?
Thank you, Adeswa, and thank you, Father, for this great job that you're doing. The place to start is where you are at right now. We agree that it's bad. We agree that we haven't done so great. But you see, we need to stop right now and say to ourselves, thus far and no more. And then we need to start to retrace our steps. And it's something that we all individually have to make a pledge to become better. That's what the whole concept of Up You is, to become a better version of yourself. When you know better, you are expected to do better. Let us say that, okay, we didn't know before, but now we know. We all carry cell phones, and all of this is available with just one touch. You can read up on gender-based violence. You can read up on abuse on um, girls and wives and mothers and stuff. You can read up on all those things, and you can say to yourself, I am not going to be a part of it. And then begin to feed yourself not to be a part of it. A couple of years ago, I took a decision that I was going to be the best version of me that God created, that God wants me to be. Because for every person that God made, He made you infinitely good. The Bible says He made us in His own image. His image cannot be what we are witnessing today in most of us who live on planet Earth. So we need to go back to say, so just who are we? Who are we? In whose image are we made? And what does He want us to do? Honestly, I have been pondering on it and thinking and asking, at what point did we become this materialistic? It's okay to look good. It's okay. I look good now, I'm sure. But you see, I didn't break a bank. You don't have to do a designer stuff when you can't afford it. If you can afford it, it's a different ball game. But if you can't afford don't even bother, because some of the things that we do to be able to look like the Joneses, We don't need to do them. I mean, way back then at Deswa, being a full-time housewife was a very noble calling. And it's still a very noble calling. Nobody should shame you for taking that option to be able to raise your children. We just have to go back to the basics. And it starts from you standing up for who you are and saying, this is me, and nobody is going to put peer pressure on me. Because even though we think peer pressure is only for young people my age are also under peer pressure. And then when you stand up and say to yourself, I am not going to allow the society validate me or decide who I should be or how I should live my life. For instance, in my home, we don't read newspaper. We don't. You know why? Because we don't want to begin to believe our press clipping. When we are returning from outside, my husband and myself, whatever it is that's saying about us anywhere, in the press, on TV, radio, wherever, we just leave it outside the gate and then we come inside the house. When we come inside the house, we are a normal Mr. and Mrs. Kufre Ekanem who have children. And what our children see, daddy and mommy, father and mother, they don't see that because that's not the real thing.
CEO.
Yeah,
They don't
that's
see
not
that
the real
CEO.
thing. That's not the real thing. Because I don't think anybody's going to go to heaven and God says, okay, so how were you able to deliver on Rosemary? How many billions did you rake in? No. But you see, if my
Rosemary's,
child
by
says
the way, just a minute. Rosemary's, by the way, is the business that you run. Just in case people don't understand why you're going that way. One of the top interior decorating companies in Nigeria today.
Thank you. So if I rake in billions and I raise children who are thieves, murderers, abusers of women and men alike, how do you go to sleep at night? I don't know how people do it. If you don't put in the work, you will not get the results. It's not magic. There is no magic anywhere and there is no free food anywhere. If you don't put in the work, you will not get the results. You have to parent. When my child was in school, all the parents were all saying, you can't flog my child, you can't do this. My husband and myself put it down in writing. Please, dear school teacher, school owner, you are allowed to flog our child because we are both flogged. However, do not mark her. Tell her to turn her hand or turn her bum, and then you can beat her for something she's done wrong. It's documented. The school still has it today. And the child didn't die. My father beat me, I didn't die. My husband's parents beat him, they didn't die. So how is it that we just woke up and we say, okay, we can't beat our children? Don't abuse them through the beating, but you can't spare the rod and expect that you're going to have a well formed child, a well behaved child. We should be able to have conversations with our children. We should be able to talk to our children. We should be able to hear them out. But how can we do that when we're in Lagos, for instance, where I live? You spend 4 hours going to work. You get to work, you do another 8 hours, that's 12. You spend another 4 hours coming, that's 16. So out of 24, you've done 16 hours out. So when are you parenting? When are you parenting? And then the one that I'm going to just keep talking is, please, people, do not let society shame you. Who is society? At the end of the day, you're the one who knows what you're going through. What is society? So they talk about you today, they talk about you tomorrow, and then they'll stop. Don't let them shame you for decisions you've taken. If you've taken a decision that I'm going to be a mother and stay at home and raise my kids, if people don't want to be your friend because of that, let them wait. Give them another 20. 20 years is even a long time. Your kids will fly the nest even before 20 years. And then you can get all the friends you want. See, I have learned in my own life that everything you want, you will get. There is nothing you're missing out on. There's this thing in my book called Fear of Missing Out on Something Somewhere Else when you're doing something else.
Yeah, FOMO.
FOMO, yes.
What they call FOMO.
When you're doing the important things in life, God has a way of orchestrating every other thing you need to come into your life. I am sure that I can attest to this.
I mean, of course. I mean, I want technical.
Let me just highlight what she said. It is said that every choice is a renunciation.
Exactly.
Every choice is a renunciation. When you choose to do this, there are a number of things that you renounce. You can't have it always.
Exactly. And ultimately, when you put them in the proper order, eventually you will get everything. Because you see, the same society will come to ask you, how did you do it? How come your children are the ones behaving well? How come they're the ones
Yeah.
getting married? How come they're the ones getting the jobs? How come your family looks together? How come you're together? How come you're happy? You're only happy because you have done the things you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do them.
Thank you,
Parenting
Ezinne.
is okay,
No,
all right,
like, I'm going to come back. I'm not saying it's over. I'm going to come back. I just need to play a little video because this all has been made possible by virtue of Spotlight Initiative. I want them to hear, to give the final words. But you see, before that video, you said at some point in time that we need to take a pledge. We actually have developed some pledge that parents need to say when it comes to day with her. So we need to take a pledge and say, what exactly is it I want to do, right? We have to make a pledge of who we are and what's important to us. And I also want to speak directly to what Father George said about every choice is a renunciation. I like that word because
yeah.
I pledge to always talk to my parents and other trusted adults
just play the
about
pledge and
anything
play the
that makes me
video
feel sad,
of Spotlight Initiative,
angry,
and we'll come back to
afraid,
have our
or
final
worried.
moments.
I pledge to say no if someone asks to see or touch my private parts. I pledge to respect and care for other children as I like to be respected and cared for. I pledge to report, speak out, and get help from my parents or a trusted adult when anyone hurts me. So help me God.
I pledge to learn about types, signs, and prevention of violence against children. I pledge to speak out and report all cases of violence against children to the appropriate authorities. I pledge to step in and help any child experiencing violence. I pledge to consciously create an environment free from violence for my child. I pledge to communicate effectively and spend quality time with my children and build a trustworthy relationship with them. So, help me God.
Let me add this one.
Your camera is Father. Yeah, that's fine.
That the Lux Terra training is also sponsored by the Spotlight Initiative.
Interesting. Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It is also the Spotlight Initiative.
Oh, fantastic. I mean, I just saw the work and I'm like, this is fantastic. It's a good idea. But you see, the interesting thing is, and I want us to both speak to that very quickly. Do you think we have reached a point in this country where father and mother would decide that we want to give up something? You know, we don't like the word sacrifice, like I said earlier. You know, we want to renounce that materialism, maybe drop all the things that we want and focus more on our children. And that we realize that there's fire on the mountain. Maybe we start an award for family life. I'm not even sure. I'm even getting confused right here. So I'll take father first. What do you think about going forward?
Actually, if we do not change by default, if we do not change by design, we will change by default. Meaning that if people were under the illusion that they can have it both ways and have everything they want at the same time, then the consequences we are seeing now, it's out there. This is 2021. Honestly, I don't know what the society will be like in another 5-10 years with the level of drug addiction, with the level of alcohol addiction, abuse, with the level of violence, rape, and all this kind of thing, and criminality. A lot of them are coming out of the fact that people do not have solid moral foundation, solid family foundation. We, Lux Terra, are into a project of projecting people of integrity as part of our anti-corruption program. People of integrity. We have done 2 volumes of work on people who are living life of integrity in spite of the rotten environment in Nigeria. And each one of them, without exception, have mentioned 2 factors why they are people of integrity: family and religion. Family. They tell you, my father was a very strict person. My father dare not, even though my father has died, I think he will be angry in his grave if he sees that I did this. My father trained me to be honest. My father trained me to be forthright, and so on and so forth. My mother did this, and so on. So family, each one of those we have surveyed as examples and models of integrity in Nigeria has mentioned family. Now, on the other hand, a lot of criminals that are caught in society, if you interview many of them, a lot of sociological work have been done that have demonstrated that many hardened criminals and sociopaths they come out of, if not broken homes, dysfunctional homes. And what we are talking about here is some form of dysfunctional home where the parents do not have time for the children. That's not a functional family. That is a dysfunctional home, even if the husband and wife love themselves. But if they do not make time for their children, there is a major dysfunction, and we are already beginning to harvest the consequences. Therefore, if we can quickly tell people, if we can help people to recognize that, look, if you do not change your course, you will end up where you're headed. If you do not change your course, you will end up where you're headed. And people should already see where we're headed. Therefore, we shouldn't wait until the system completely collapses before we begin to adjust. Now, as Ezinne said, at the end of the day, if you give up some things in the first 5 years of your daughter's life, you will get it more than, at the end of the day. And then in your old age, you are a happy woman, you are a happy man, because you have given birth and raised responsible children.
Thank you. I like the fact that you've taken it back to the family, which is very interesting. I mean, based on the work that you've done, which is why I would like to bring Ezinne in here. I mean, being a mother, raise kids, you're married, you have a business. I mean, I'm sure there were things you gave up, perfunctorily to be able to serve your role. So I wonder if you agree with Father that morality starts from home. So if we see our leaders fighting themselves and beating themselves in the House of Assembly, or we see people taking drugs and doing stuff, or we see young girls, like what is trending right now, a young girl of 21 who murders a 50-year-old, all the issues that are raised in that. So we should be blaming ourselves at the end of the day. Ezinne, what do you think? We have 5 minutes to go here.
Sincerely, the whole thing falls on us parents, and I don't know at what point society went away from the norm. When I was growing up, training a child was a collective function of everyone. I knew that if I was walking down the street, my neighbor's mother would come out and say, "That dress you're wearing, did your mother see you?" And promptly go and tell my mother, in case Ezinne escaped your eye, I saw Ezinne on the road, her dress was too short. That's the kind of society we grew up in. But now, you see, everybody's just minding their business. I don't want to be seen to. I don't want to add to. But you don't want to be seen to. You don't want to add to. But these are the friends that your children will keep.
That's right.
These are the friends your children will keep. So the earlier we reverse and go back to the point of making training the children a collective like it was before, the better for all of us. I mean, I can't say that I know everything about parenting, but I'll be more comfortable knowing that, if I just sees my son smoking one of those things that they do, now that you're going to caution him and quickly call my attention to it. But you find out what happens now is that, look, parents are even partying with these children. Like the case you mentioned. Parents are doing these wild parties with these children. And then you're watching children that are age mates to your own children doing what they're not supposed to do. And then you keep quiet, you encourage them. So why won't we have the society that we have? We need to go back to the basics. So we just have to go back to the basics. Of parents sitting down and saying,
I like what you Go ahead, Ezinne.
Yes, I just go on. You know,
Go
so
ahead.
we have to go back to we have to go back to the basics. And if it means, oh, taking a decision in the family that this person takes smaller hours at work, you know, takes a lesser paying job or something, then you've got to do it. At the
That's
point
right.
when I had to give up my job, we weren't even well off. We had just gotten married. In fact, I was the one who had the bigger salary, but I had to give it up because I knew that the responsibility to train my child was mine squarely. Because before they point at, oh, this father, you were there, and the child, they will say, what was the mother doing? And I didn't want someone to say,
Exactly.
what was the mother doing? Especially like I say to people that I don't want to go to heaven and God will say, I gave you only one child and you couldn't even deliver on that one child.
So I would like Father to come in here as we wind down, right? I like the whole idea of collective responsibility for parenting, that if only we took the interest in other people's children, then it would be good. But I'm sure you are aware that sometimes the backlash when you're trying to raise and correct another child comes from the parent, him or herself, even for schools. So I want to address this whole idea. At the end of the day, we're talking about hashtag I deal with her. But you're telling me we can't deal with her if we are not, that means if we don't see the next person's problem as ours. Do you agree with that? Or if you don't, tell me why, Father George.
We have serious challenges today with people helping parents to do that task of parenting. I mean, go and ask young people who are teaching in elite primary schools. People who are teaching in elite primary schools, they cannot correct the children. I mean, I know of a case where two 8-year-old or 8 and 9-year-old children were caught in the bathroom doing what amounts to sexual abuse of themselves. And when the parents' attention was called to it, the parent was so angry against the teachers that out of anger, she withdrew her 2 children from that school.
Oh, wow.
Now, because it's like, why would you talk about this? Why would you tell me about this? Meaning, I can't understand. Her reaction was such. And then the school authorities who want to keep the children, who don't want any child taken away from the school, may even end up sending the teachers away because the teachers are making them lose patronage. That is how low we have gone. And we really need to, all of us need to be involved in reconceiving the kind of society we desire, that we deliver the goods. Getting some things from our background, from the rich family community heritage that we had, and other things from what we are learning from developmental psychology, and putting them together to make our families better and our societies better. But let everyone who is going into marriage know that any idiot can impregnate a girl, any fool can get pregnant, but not any fool or idiot can be a father or a mother. Those are glorious assignments that you need a lot of responsibility to do.
So thank you so much. No. So as we wind up, remember I say we deal with her. So I want us to say 2 things that we think, maybe even 3, very quickly, short, that shows that we are actually in support of protecting your child in our world. So I'll go with you first, Ezinne. Hashtag I deal with her. What are the things we should do? Up you.
Yeah, hashtag I deal with her. Up you to every woman speaking out their truth about being victimized. You are not a victim, you are actually a victor. So I've made a decision a long time ago that I'm not going to stigmatize any woman who speaks out. I'm going to listen patiently. Listen and give you a wonderful hug and send you along to any place I know that you can get help. You know, we're so scared of, when people hear that you're consulting a clinical psychologist or something, they think you're mad. No. It's not madness. We need some of these things to be able to speak out our minds and speak out our traumas. We need to do those things to be able to clear our heads and then restart our journeys. So yes, this is me giving you a thumbs up and me saying, I support you. I have listening ears. I'll listen and I'll do all I can do for you. And I'll keep talking about this. I'll keep speaking up.
I deal with her
until we have a critical force and a movement on this matter. Thank you, Agaswa. Thank you, Father, as well.
Thank you, Father George. What are your last 3 points that we all must take into consideration as we fight this evil?
I join Ezinne and yourself in saying up you to all those who have the courage to come out to say something has happened to me. And I encourage religious bodies, churches and mosques to each try to have some counselor available, that people who are traumatized, who are distressed, who have been beaten, who have been abused, even verbal abuse, that they can go to talk to. Make sure that you always have somebody. I mean, I have had to appoint somebody at Luke's Terre to be there all the time, or have phone number available for people to call when people have issues. So churches and mosques must make provision to have a counselor that people can go to. Then finally, families, just recognize that whatever you give up for the sake of raising a child or two is not a loss, because the benefit you are going to reap from raising responsible children will overwhelm everything you lose otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a very good way to end my 13-part series, because we have thrown the light back at the parents themselves. Materialism is eating us out, and this whole idea of wanting to be part of the Joneses is eating us out, and we're reaping the fruits. So we have all agreed here today, if we want to stay with her, we need to begin to think, what kind of families are we in? What kind of society do we want to bequeath to the world? Do we want our children to say, tomorrow, my parents supported me, my mother is my example, my father is my example? That's our prayer. So I thank all of you for having followed us on this series. Not the end. We shall begin the mother-daughter series, and I'm telling you, we shall also do the Real Men series. This is out of all of the conversations that people are talking about, how women are not helping women or teaching their daughters, and also how men are not standing up to be real men. So we're going to be looking at all of those issues. I thank you both for being here. I thank all of you who have watched so far. And remember, hashtag I did with her.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Father George.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I did with her.
I did with all of them. Thank you. Bye-bye.
If the I Did With Her campaign is successful, we would see zero tolerance for violence against women and girls, and we'll also see a very significant shift in our norms and our cultures to positively reflect our empowerment of women and girls and in the society.